My name is Sophie, and that night is still clear in my mind like a picture I cannot erase. I had imagined it so many times, my graduation dinner, the moment I would finally sit with my family and feel proud of everything I had done. The banquet hall was large and beautiful, with soft golden lights hanging from the ceiling and white flowers placed carefully on every table. I had chosen everything myself, from the music to the menu. It cost me $18,500, a number I had repeated in my head more than once, not because I regretted it, but because I wanted it to mean something. But as I stood there, the room was empty. Every chair was perfectly arranged, every plate untouched, every glass shining under the lights. The silence felt louder than any crowd. I checked the time again, even though I already knew the truth. They weren't coming. My phone buzzed in my hand, breaking the stillness. For a second, I felt a small spark of hope. Maybe they were just late. Maybe there was traffic, or some simple excuse that would make everything okay. I unlocked my phone quickly and opened the message. It was from my brother Daniel. "We're in Paris. Nobody cares about your graduation dinner." I read it twice, not because I didn't understand, but because I couldn't believe how simple it sounded. Like my effort meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. Before I could even react, another message appeared. This time from my cousin Elena. "Oh, and your $110,000 savings paid for our tickets. Thanks." That was the moment something inside me shifted. I didn't cry. That surprised me the most. I had always thought I would break if something like this happened. I had spent years helping them, supporting them, trusting them. I paid for things they needed without asking questions. I told myself it was what family did. But standing there, alone in that expensive, silent hall, I realized something I had never allowed myself to see before. They didn't respect me. They depended on me, yes. They used what I gave them. But they never truly saw me. I slowly walked toward the long table at the center of the room. My heels made a soft sound against the floor, echoing through the empty space. I ran my fingers lightly over the edge of a plate, perfectly placed for someone who would never sit there. For a moment, I let myself feel it all, the disappointment, the embarrassment, the quiet anger building in my chest. It wasn't loud or wild. It was calm, steady, and clear. I took a deep breath and looked around one last time. Then I whispered, "Good." The word felt strange, but it was honest. Because in that moment, I understood something important. If they could walk away from me so easily, then I could finally stop holding on to them. And as I turned and walked out of the empty hall, I knew that this night wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. I did not go home right away after leaving the banquet hall. I drove slowly through the quiet streets, letting the night settle around me. The city lights blurred through my windshield, and for once, I did not feel rushed or pressured to fix anything. Usually, after a problem, I would start thinking about how to make things better for everyone else. That night was different. That night, I was thinking about myself. When I finally reached my house, I sat in the car for a few minutes before going inside. It was a modern place with wide glass windows and a calm view of the river. I had bought it for $420,000 after years of careful work and saving. Every corner of that house reminded me of discipline and long nights, of choosing responsibility when others chose comfort. It had always been my safe place, but until that night, I had never truly used it to protect myself. I walked in, placed my keys on the table, and kicked off my heels. The silence inside felt different from the silence in the banquet hall. This one was peaceful, not empty. I went straight to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down with my laptop. I opened it slowly, almost carefully, like I knew that what I was about to do would change everything. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. My reflection looked back at me, tired, calm, and strangely focused. I thought about all the times I had said yes when I wanted to say no. All the times I had paid for things without being asked, believing it would bring us closer as a family. It never did. I logged into my banking system. The first account I opened was the shared travel card. I had set it up 2 years ago for family emergencies, but somehow it had turned into a free pass for trips, shopping, and expenses that had nothing to do with emergencies. I hovered over the settings for a second. Then I disabled it. Just like that. No warning. No message. No explanation. Next was Daniel's personal card. I had been covering his expenses for months while he figured things out. I used to tell myself he just needed time. Time was over. I froze the account. Then Elena's. She always had a reason, always a story about why she needed help. I had believed her every time. Her access was removed within seconds. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I expected guilt or hesitation, but there was none. Instead, I felt something steady, something clear. Control. Finally, I opened Maria's tuition account. This one made me pause. She was my sister, and helping her with her education had always felt like the right thing to do. It was $36,000 every year, a number I had never complained about. But then I remembered the messages. Not one of them had thought about me that night. Not one of them had respected what I had done. I closed my eyes briefly. Then I froze the payments. I leaned back in my chair and let out a slow breath. The room felt lighter, like something heavy had been removed from my life. But I wasn't done. Because cutting them off was not the real change. It was just the beginning. I opened a folder on my desktop, one I had been avoiding for months. It was labeled simply, Project S. Inside were documents, plans, notes, and ideas I had been building quietly in my free time. A business idea I believed in, but never fully committed to because I was too busy supporting everyone else. It was a company focused on luxury rental homes across Europe and America. Clean, organized, high-quality properties for people who wanted comfort without chaos. I had studied the market, planned the structure, even listed potential locations. But I had never taken the final step. I scrolled through the documents slowly, reading my own ideas like they were written by someone else. I could see the potential clearly now. It wasn't just a dream. It was something real, something possible. I opened my savings account. Even after everything I had spent and everything they had taken, I still had enough to start. I transferred $75,000 into a new business account. The number sat there on the screen, simple and powerful. This time, the money was not for them. It was for me. I began making calls that same night. I reached out to a property agent I had spoken to months ago. I sent emails to contacts I had been too hesitant to follow up with. I reviewed locations, contracts, and investment options. Hours passed without me noticing. For the first time in a long time, I felt fully focused. There was no distraction, no emotional weight pulling me in different directions. Every decision I made was clear and direct. Around 3 in the morning, I finally closed my laptop. The house was quiet, the river outside still and dark. I stood by the window for a moment, looking at my reflection again. This time, I looked different. Not softer, stronger. I realized something important then. I had spent years being the person everyone depended on, but I had never built something that truly belonged to me. Now I was. And no one was going to take it from me. I turned off the lights and walked to my room, knowing that when morning came, everything would be different. Because that night, I didn't just cut them off. I chose myself. The morning after I cut them off, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I had to, but because my mind refused to stay still. For the first time in years, my thoughts were not filled with other people's problems. They were filled with plans, my plans. Sunlight came through the wide glass windows of my house, reflecting off the calm river outside. I stood there with a cup of coffee in my hand and realized something simple but powerful. No one was going to interrupt me today. No calls asking for money. No messages expecting answers. Just silence. An opportunity. I opened my laptop and went straight back to Project S. This time, it wasn't just an idea sitting in a folder. It was something alive. I started organizing everything properly. Budgets, timelines, contacts, risks. I wrote down clear steps instead of vague hopes. Step 1. Secure the first property. Step 2. Build a reliable system. Step 3. Expand without losing control. It felt serious now. Within a week, I had my first meeting scheduled with a property agent in London. His name was Oliver Grant, a calm and practical man who spoke directly and didn't waste time. We met through a video call, and I explained exactly what I wanted: high-end rental homes, short-term stays, and a smooth experience for clients who valued quality. He didn't laugh. He didn't doubt me. Instead, he said, "If you're ready to move fast, I can show you options." That was all I needed. 2 weeks later, I flew to London and walked through a narrow street lined with elegant townhouses. The air was cool, the city alive but controlled. Oliver showed me a property that immediately stood out, a clean, well-designed townhouse in a quiet but central location. The price was high, but the potential was higher. I stood in the empty living room, looking at the large windows and polished floors, and imagined it filled with guests. Not chaos, not noise, just calm, organized luxury. "I'll take it," I said. The deposit was $22,000. As I signed the papers, I felt a mix of pressure and excitement. This was real money. My money. But unlike before, it wasn't being spent to fix someone else's life. It was building mine. Back home, I didn't slow down. I hired a cleaner, a photographer, and a part-time manager to handle bookings. I paid attention to every detail: lighting, furniture, presentation. I wanted everything to feel simple but perfect. The first booking came faster than I expected. Then another. And another. Within a month, the property was fully booked for weeks ahead. That was the moment I knew this could work. I reinvested everything. Every dollar that came in went straight back into the business. I didn't celebrate. I didn't relax. I kept building. My second property was a loft apartment in New York. It cost more, required more effort, and came with more risk. But I had learned something important from the first one. If I stayed focused, I could manage it. New York was different. Faster. Louder. But the market was strong, and I adapted quickly. I hired better people, improved my systems, and made sure everything ran smoothly without me needing to control every small detail. Then came the third property, a coastal house in southern Europe. It was quiet, beautiful, and expensive. The kind of place people would pay a lot of money to stay in for peace and privacy. This time, I didn't hesitate at all. By then, something had changed inside me. I was no longer the person who waited for approval. I made decisions and moved forward. As the months passed, my company began to take shape. It wasn't just about properties anymore. It was about a standard, a clean, reliable experience that people trusted. Guests returned. Reviews improved. Income grew. And people started noticing. One afternoon, I received an email from a man named Victor Hayes. He was a businessman based in America, and he had been watching my work quietly. He asked for a meeting. We spoke the next day. "I like what you're building," he said. "It's simple, but strong. How would you feel about expanding faster?" I didn't answer immediately. A few months ago, I might have been unsure, worried about risk or failure. But now, I understood something clearly. Growth required bold decisions. "I'm listening," I replied. He offered $200,000 as an investment. Not control. Not ownership of everything. Just support to scale faster. I accepted. Shortly after, I connected with Claire Dubois, a property manager based in Europe. She understood the market better than anyone I had met. With her help, I expanded into new locations more efficiently, avoiding mistakes I might have made on my own. Together, we built systems that worked without constant supervision. Everything became smoother, stronger, more stable. By the end of the year, my company was no longer a small idea started in a quiet house. It was a growing business across multiple cities. And it was making more money than I had ever imagined. But more important than the money was something else. Peace. No one was asking me for anything anymore. No one was depending on me in a way that drained me. For the first time in my life, everything I had built belonged to me. And it was enough. One evening, I sat in my office, looking at the numbers on my screen. Profits, bookings, expansion plans. It all felt real, solid. I leaned back in my chair and smiled slightly. Not because I had proven something to them, but because I had finally proven something to myself. I didn't need anyone to carry me, and I was never going back to the life I had left behind. It had been almost a year since that night in the empty banquet hall. By then, my life looked completely different. My mornings were no longer quiet because of loneliness, but because of control. I chose when to start, what to focus on, and who to speak to. My company had grown beyond what I first imagined. Properties across cities in Europe and America were fully booked weeks in advance. My calendar was filled with meetings, but none of them drained me. Everything I did had a purpose now. That evening, I was sitting in my office, reviewing reports from the New York property. The numbers were strong, steady, and predictable. That was something I had worked hard to achieve, not just success, but stability. My phone buzzed. I didn't rush to check it. That habit had left me months ago. Now, I finished what I was doing, saved my work, and only then reached for my phone. The message was from Daniel. "Hey Sophia, we need to talk." I stared at the screen for a few seconds, not surprised, but not emotional either. It felt distant, like reading a message from someone I used to know a long time ago. Before I could decide whether to reply, another message came in. This time from Maria. "I might lose my place at university. Please help." I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. There was no anger in me anymore, just clarity. I had already lived through the difficult part, the disappointment, the silence, the decision to walk away. Then came the third message. Elena, we didn't think you'd actually cut us off. That line almost made me smile, but not in a happy way. It was the kind of smile that comes when something finally makes sense. They never believed I would stop. For years, I had been predictable, reliable in a way that made it easy for them to depend on me without thinking twice. I had built that pattern myself, and for a long time, I didn't question it. Until I did. I stood up and walked toward the large window in my office. The city lights stretched out in front of me, steady and bright. Everything I had built was out there, not because someone gave it to me, but because I chose to build it. I thought about replying immediately, giving in to the old habit of fixing things quickly. But I didn't. Instead, I placed my phone on the desk and gave myself time to think, not emotionally, but clearly. Helping them again without change would only bring me back to where I started. And I had no intention of going back. After a few minutes, I picked up my phone and opened a new message. I didn't reply to them individually. I created one message and sent it to all three of them. I didn't cut you off. I just stopped carrying you. I read it once before sending. It was simple, direct, and true. Then I paused for a moment and added another line. If you want help, we start fresh, with respect. I sent it. No long explanation. No apology. No anger. Just a boundary. I put my phone down and walked away from the desk. Whatever came next was up to them. For the first time, I wasn't responsible for their reaction. Minutes passed. Then my phone buzzed again. Daniel replied first. We didn't realize how much you were doing. I read it, but I didn't respond right away. Then Maria. I'm sorry. I should have been there for you. And finally, Elena. We were wrong. I stood there quietly, taking in their words. A year ago, those messages would have meant everything to me. I would have forgiven them instantly, rushed to help, and tried to rebuild everything as quickly as possible. But I was not that person anymore. Growth had changed how I saw things. Words were easy. Change was not. I walked back to my desk, sat down, and typed one more message. Then show me. I sent it and placed my phone face down. That was all I needed to say. Because this time, I wasn't going to measure their intentions by what they said, but by what they did. The room felt calm again. Not tense, not uncertain. Just steady. I turned my attention back to my work, opening the next report, reviewing plans for a new property, and preparing for a meeting the next morning. My life was moving forward, and nothing was going to stop that. Whether they became part of it again or not, that was their choice now. Later that night, as I stood by the window once more, I reflected on everything that had happened. The empty hall, the silence, the decisions that followed. None of it felt painful anymore. It felt necessary. Because without that moment, I would still be living a life built around others, not myself. I realized something important then. Losing people is not always a loss. Sometimes, it is the space you need to finally see clearly. I turned off the lights in my office and picked up my bag, ready to leave. As I walked out, I felt something quiet but powerful settle inside me. I was no longer waiting for anyone to choose me. I had already chosen myself. And this time, that was more than enough.